Hello friends, I'm Oleksandr Palii, Ukrainian historian. My previous lecture on the history of Ukraine see on my YouTube channel. Today I will tell you about the beginning of civilization in Ukraine. You will see that this meant a lot not only for Ukraine.
In the late 19th century, the Ukrainian archaeologist Vikenty Khvoyka discovered ancient, masterfully designed pottery near the village of Tripilia in the Kyiv region. The oldest of these dated back to the Stone Age, the 6th millennium B.C. Scientists named it the Tripilian culture. This culture was close to the contemporary cultures of the Balkans and the Mediterranean. Tripilian society was similar to the early civilizations of the ancient East in terms of development. The Tripilians built unfortified settlements, were not afraid of enemy attacks, and most important, learned to grow plants not only on the river floodplains and meadows, but also in plain fields. The population of the territory covered by the Tripilian culture was at least 1 million at any given time. Tripilian villages formed large populated areas where neighbors lived in safety. The largest Tripilian settlements are located in the Cherkasy region, the villages of Maidanetsky, Talyanki, etc. Each had 3,000 houses and a population of some 20,000, i.e., more than an average medieval town. Most houses in these proto-towns had 2 residential floors. At the time, these were likely the world's largest population centers. They were able to reach such a large size due to the fertility of the Ukrainian lands. In the mid-4th millennium BC, the Seredny Shty culture, named after a site in Zaporizhia, emerged on the outskirts of the Tripilian culture between the lower Dnipro and the lower Don. The local population switched from agriculture to transhumance. Groups of herdsmen would drive flocks to remote pastures in the spring and return to the villages in the fall. Cattle breeders initially found it difficult to compete with the Tripilians as they had worse tools and weapons. Archaeologists found a settlement in southern Ukraine in which all men were Tripilians and all women came from the Seredny Shty culture. At the time, a farmer could provide for a family of several people, while a herdsman could feed several dozens or even hundreds of tribesmen. Several dozen thousands of Seredny Shty culture people were among the ancestors of a third branch of humanity, the group of peoples now called Indo-European, because they inhabited a huge territory stretching from Europe to North India and the lands they colonized overseas. Indo-European languages are now spoken by more than half of the world's population. Indo-Europeans had typical hominid idols, known in Ukrainian steppes as stone baba, burial mounds and maces used as weapons. Indo-Europeans worshipped weapons, the sun and fire. They buried stone axes in graves, even long after metals were invented. Red is the color of rebirth in the Indo-European tradition. Indo-Europeans put red ochre into the graves, and people in India color their hands and feet with red paint until today. The Indo-European tribes were more or less closely related. The closest relatives of the Slavs were the Balts, modern Lithuanians and Latvians, northern Indo-Iranians. The Ossets today speak an Indo-Iranian language, and the Germanic peoples, Germans, Danes, Swedes, British Britons, Norwegians, Dutchmen, etc. The Indo-European peoples embarked on migrations of gigantic proportions in the 4th to 2nd millennium BC, populating territories from Ireland to India. Indo-European tribes moved from the territory of Ukraine across the steppes to Asia and the West, settling in new lands. This was possible because the horse was domesticated on the territory of Ukraine in the 4th millennium BC. The remains of the world's first domesticated horses were found in the village of Derivka on the right bank of the Dnipro. The teeth of these horses were uniformly damaged by bone bridles. Horses were domesticated later than other animals because of their resistance to control. Cavalry and the use of wagons gave the ancestors of Indo-European peoples a decisive advantage over other tribes. Even 2 millennia later, armies in ancient Egypt feared horses, considering them the spirits of the desert. Part of the Indo-European tribes, Indo-Iranian tribes, remained in the steppes of southern Ukraine. They were thus named because ethnic groups related to them settled in North India and Iran. Indo-Iranians, or Cimmerians, who lived in the territory of Ukraine, became the first people in Eastern Europe to be mentioned in a written source, the Iliad by the Greek poet Homer. They had stone cities, long swords, and attacked settlements in what is now central Ukraine.